I'm Elisa Parker. We're broadcasting here from the Wild and Scenic Film Festival. For 17 years, we've been hosting this phenomenal festival. It's one of the largest environmental film festivals of its kind in the United States. And it's based here in Nevada City and Grass Valley, California, the base of the Sierras. We have thousands of incredible people that come here, like my next guest, LeeAnne Walters, her husband, Dennis Walters, and Will Parrinello, who has been creating these extraordinary films to capture the Goldman Prize winners, one of which, the film is Flipping the Switch. It's premiering here, it's screening here at Wild and Scenic. LeeAnne is a 2018 Goldman Prize winner, which I call it like the Oscars, or you've called it like the Nobel Prize of Environmental Action Heroes. It's an extraordinary award. It's such an accomplishment. I always love connecting with the winners because you truly are like everyday people who were forced really to take action in your community. LeeAnne and Dennis are from Flint, Michigan. They have been leading the way around the water crisis there, and it's just such an honor to have you both here, and Will here with us as well.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to have you here. I was so excited, LeeAnne, when I heard that you were going to be here. You know, the Flint water crisis has been a story that I know for a lot of us, especially at Wild and Scenic, it's just been such a prominent component of environmental activism, and also just looking at what can go wrong.
Right.
When we look within our political system and our structures that are not serving us anymore. So can you tell everyone just how you've been involved in this and taking the lead? We'll talk a little bit with Dennis too around how he's been engaged in this and supporting and being part of this as well.
Are you talking about when it was happening or now?
Let's talk when first. Let's talk like how you got engaged in this, what was happening, and then what you're doing now.
So what was happening is we were having brown water come through our kitchen tap on a daily basis, and being told by the city it was specific to our home and that nobody else was suffering from hair loss and rashes and brown water. And so we started going into meetings. And we go into meetings and we're seeing all these other residents having the same issues we were.
Like meetings with city council meetings?
City council meetings, special meetings that were put together for health, where they would bring in like the health officials from MDHHS and MDEQ. And so we're there, we're seeing it, and we're leaving these meetings and we're saying, okay, there's all this physical evidence and nobody's listening. So how do we make them listen? So we got to the science of it because you can't argue with the science. And so from doing that, I was able to figure out that they were breaking a federal law and poisoning the city. With that information, I went to the EPA, had EPA assisting me for a bit. And then when the word got out that I was getting assistance from federal government, his bosses shut him down and he was almost fired. And so going forward, where do you go?
Right. Where do you go? Do you have a scientific background?
Well, I have my degree as a medical assistant.
Okay.
But we had expanded our family, and so I was a stay-at-home mom. We had twins, and so they were 3 when this happened, when it started.
And it's alarming, right? Water's our life.
Exactly.
Water's more precious than gold.
And see that's the one thing. Like I keep saying, we need to make it a human right. It cannot be the gold.
I think we assume that having clean drinking water is a human right, and you discovered that wasn't necessarily the case.
Definitely not the case. Not in Flint. Not at all. So with that, we teamed up with a professor from Virginia Tech, who gave us the tools to prove ourselves and to the world that what was happening there was actually happening. They were poisoning the whole city. By the testing we were able to do, the citizen scientist testing and testing the water, we were able to prove it was a citywide problem, not specific to just my home. And so that's where my husband comes into it.
Dennis, and you're a military veteran as well?
Yes, I am.
Are you still active in the military?
Currently, yes.
Okay. So how is this for you? When you're in the military, obviously there's a lot of trust that you're putting into our political system. And there's a lot based there in protection. What was this like then for you on a personal level, knowing that your family, your community was being harmed in that way?
Well, it was a slap in the face, honestly. Like she said, we went to numerous events. And every single one, we had police officers just basically surrounding everybody. Kind of a scare tactic, but I'm like, they're supposed to be here. All right, we can deal with it.
Surrounding you, what? So you take action in your community?
No, at our meetings.
Okay.
There would be at least 5 to 6 officers there. which are supposed to be there for crowd control, but a lot of individuals, they were sitting there going, is this a scare tactic, or are they trying to muscle us? So everybody's always on edge. So it was a slap in the face, because I'm not only in the Navy, I'm also a police officer. So what am I supposed to do?
So what did you do?
Backed up every single individual. Like she said, we went to the science. You can't argue science. You can try to discredit it, but we put in protocols to where we wouldn't be able to be discredited. So it is what it is.
And what he's referring to with the meetings with the police, we would set up meetings, like we'd be at city council, and they would set up these special meetings for us to go to talk as a whole with the health officials and with the MDEQ. And then they would change it at the last minute to a smaller venue, so not everybody could attend. And then when we'd get there, it would be a heavy police force before you ever got in. And you wouldn't be allowed to ask questions. You had to write them on a piece of paper, and they would review them and pick and choose what they would answer and how they would answer it. And so basically it was set up that way, so when the crowd got out of control or upset or angry or emotional, they would shut everything down.
Wow. That must have been so frustrating. So LeeAnne helped to build this coalition with support of your family. And how did you then create this coalition and movement within your community when everything was working against you initially to make that happen?
Well, I want to make it clear it wasn't just me and it wasn't just Dennis. It was our whole community.
The whole community rallied.
We all got together. It was a lot of powerful women working together, working in the areas that were their expertise, I guess you would say. We were all focusing in different areas and then bringing all that back to the table and putting it together to make this successful. And a lot of, and men too. I don't want to discredit the men in this.
Right.
And it was multicultural.
Multicultural.
Yes. I mean, it was just everybody coming together because it was everybody's family that was being harmed.
What are the key things you learned about Dennis and LeeAnne in this process of helping to be part and co-creating a coalition that can make a difference in your community?
It was amazing to see how everybody could come together and rally together, and to prove to everybody that everyday people can make a difference. I mean, if you would have told us years ago that this is where we'd be in this, I would have told you were wrong. We've also learned that not everybody's in it for the greater good, and you're going to have people who are going to try to discredit you, even within your own community. There are people, it's like the art of war, where people are put in place to try, when you get a group of people together that are making a difference, people are planted to try and dissipate the work that you're doing.
Right. It's an extraordinary, and I want to say it's more in the story because we're still living it. You're still, tell us where everyone's at now. And then I want to talk with you, Will, about documenting this. Will's done so many great stories around the Goldman Prize winners. And this is certainly one of them. So where are we at right now in Flint, Michigan? What's happening with the water? Michael Moore did his recent film talked a lot about Flint, and it was shocking to hear that people still weren't getting access to clean water. So,
the free bottled water has stopped. So we're everything by donation. We've gotten the lead levels down. The big problem is bacteria, because they can't maintain chlorine in the system because of the damage that was done to the infrastructure. And so, like in our neighborhood, we're the closest from the treatment plant, so we're not even allowed to use the filters that you put on your kitchen tap because we haven't been able to maintain chlorine there since 2015.
Wow. And so now you have to pay for bottled water.
Yeah, you pay for it out of pocket, or donations are what we rely on coming into the churches so people can get cases of water. But it's usually 2 to 4 cases, and you're waiting in line for 3 to 6 hours.
It's crazy, LeeAnne. And are you still being charged? Are you charged by the city for water?
Oh yeah.
Usage? Okay.
Yeah, we pay 8 times the national average for water.
That's ridiculous.
Before you ever see a drop of water in the city of Flint, the surcharges are between $55 and $60 a month.
And you also, in helping to be part of this movement, are inviting others within our communities to have our water tested. So tell everyone a little bit about that too.
Well, what it is Flint is unique because of them breaking the federal law and not treating it properly. But by doing this, we discovered that there is a huge problem with the lead and copper rule, and that is a federal law. And so with that, water utilities and cities are allowed to use loopholes to hide and minimize the lead that they're supposed to be finding. And so if people want to go to their local water department and request a lead and copper test, they can feel free to email me the instruction sheet on how to test, and I can let people know if their city is cheating.
Do you want to share what your email is?
Absolutely. My email is lwalters313@gmail.com.
She'll work with you on having your water tested. So
Absolutely.
Will, tell us about this experience for you. I know you are really connected now with LeeAnne and Dennis through this process. What has this been like for you?
Well, I mean, it's a gift having the opportunity to make these films and getting to work with people like LeeAnne and Dennis who are making a change in the world. It makes me feel like I need to do more. I'm not doing enough because there are so many issues that we are facing that seem, insurmountable. But what LeeAnne and Dennis and a lot of the other environmental activists who I'm lucky enough to work with tell me is, no, but you're a storyteller. Tell the story. You're able to tell the story in a way that's uniquely different perhaps than anyone else tells the story. And I would say that what we try to do is a mix of journalism to maintain the integrity of a story and the facts, but also a story that has heart and getting at the motivation, the passion, what's the essence, the human essence of the story, and that's what always comes through for us. And the key to making a successful film is collaborating. When I first talked to Lee, I said, listen, if I come and I just make the film and the story that I think is the story, at the end, we probably will both have failed. You know what your story is. We need to collaborate and do this together. As a filmmaker, you kind of have to be in charge of the schedule and you have to be the boss. You're the field general, if you will. Well, you can't be an activist like these two folks and not be in charge as well. So you have to share that. And so you're going out together. It seems like a strange analogy to use, a war analogy, but it sort of is a battle doing the work that they're doing.
It is.
Sometimes,
well, and your lives are threatened.
Yeah.
When your lives are threatened, your health, your children's health, it is like that. And
Yeah.
what is you have featured and connected with so many of the Goldman Prize winners and telling their stories or helping to tell their stories. What is like the one common thread that you've seen between all of them?
The one common thread is that what seems insurmountable to the activists who we're featuring, to them seems just like common sense. If you were what people say is time and again, if you were faced with your family, your life, your access to clean water being threatened, your environment, your livelihood, believe me, you would stand up and fight. I'll be honest, I'm not sure I would. I don't know that I'm that courageous. I would like to think that I am, and particularly because I've worked with people who have shown me that example, but I'm not sure, and I think that's exemplary, and that's what makes these folks so special, and why I'm honored to call them my friends, and lucky enough to get to tell their story.
LeeAnne and Dennis, how has this experience been just for the two of you and your relationship with each other and your family? I think, Dennis, even for you, just to be able to see your wife show up in this way, what has that been like for you?
Well, it's been kind of odd, to be honest. I get to see her 2 weeks out of the month because she travels back and forth to Michigan. But we make it work. We've got to.
What's something that you learned about her that you didn't know before this happened?
That I need bail money every once in a while.
Oh, have you been arrested several times,
No, but
LeeAnne?
we've been close. We've been
I
close.
have not. Okay, when you have a state nurse tell you with your lead poisoned child that it's just a few IQ points, it's not the end of the world,
Wow.
You wouldn't say that if that was your child. When you get told in a meeting in front of everybody publicly by the emergency manager and an official from the MDEQ that you're a liar and that you're stupid,
Right.
how do you, and that, I mean, that's like the running joke. People always say we have to get a GoFundMe because one of these times it's going to happen.
Right.
But I mean, these are our children. When the city offers you $1 million to shut up and go away, there's a problem.
Right.
But you don't do it because how do you live with yourself? Like, we could have never taken the money and left and not
Right.
stood and fight.
Right. It's your community.
It
The
is.
fact that local, state, and federal officials are all in collusion to cover this up, it's unconscionable. This is the United States of
Right.
America. We're not talking
Right.
about a third world developing country. This is the
right
United
here
States.
in our country.
You know what's
Our
funny?
neighbors.
I was told, I said that in a couple interviews, that it was like living in a third world country. And I had a student from Brown who was from Nigeria. And she said, no, you're wrong. And I said, what do you mean? She said, we're taught not to trust our government. It's worse.
Wow.
And I was like, you're right. Thank you for correcting me.
Wow. I mean, it's an experience that you would never have invited to happen, or none of us would, but I just am so in awe of what you are all doing and telling the stories, but just how you showed up to protect both your family, your livelihood, your community, being courageous to do that. It takes a lot of courage to do what LeeAnne and Dennis have done. And like you said, well, we just never know how we'll show up in those moments until hopefully it doesn't happen to you. But there's so much to learn from the three of you really, and how we can show up in our best self, ensuring that we have all the information we need, both in our communities and also just the community connection and how we can co-support each other is a really important part of this experience and story too. So how can we support you? I know part of the Goldman Prize, by the way, is you receive a significant amount of money in the award. So I'm sure that was a big part for the work that you're doing, but how else can we help support?
One of the things that we need people getting a hold of EPA and getting a hold of Congress to make sure and supporting us in getting the lead and copper rule changed. We were promised that by January of 2019 it would happen, and it hasn't, and we're told right now there isn't a set date for that. And that needs to change, so what happened in Flint never happens again. Be on the lookout. I'm working on a new project, me with a group of Flint residents, for something that we're hoping is going to launch in March, where people can support and donate in to get people clean water. And the way we're going to be doing it, if it works out the way we're hoping, it'd be like for a year's worth of donations to keep somebody in clean water for a year at a very minimal cost.
That's great. That's great. Well, thank you so much for everything you are all doing to make a difference. It is important, and it's very important to have you here at Wild and Scenic. I'm always like, oh my gosh, we need these Goldman Prize winners here. I've had a chance to speak with a lot of the women who have won. I'm like, these stories need to be told. It really is around these courageous, everyday environmental action heroes, and we can all be that. It's all within us. That power lives and resides within you. Thank you so much for being here. LeeAnne is going to be speaking at our Women's March coming up shortly, so we're very excited to have you participate in that.
And we have a panel coming up at 1 o'clock about
Great.
grassroots activism. So check that out if anyone else is interested.
Thanks so much, you guys. I'm Elisa Parker. We're broadcasting here from the 17th Annual Wild and Scenic Film Festival, sharing incredible stories like LeeAnne's and Dennis's, and Will, who's helping to capture these.